The story of the space race begins in the aftermath of World War II. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as global superpowers locked in a Cold War, a geopolitical and ideological struggle for dominance. While this conflict played out in political arenas and proxy wars, it also expanded to the final frontier, outer space. In 1957, the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. This small metal sphere, no larger than a beach ball, was a technological triumph and a symbol of Soviet innovation. The beep of Sputnik's signal transmitted back to Earth resonated as a stark reminder to the United States that they were falling behind in a critical domain. Just 1 month earlier, the Soviets sent a dog, Laika, aboard Sputnik 2, demonstrating their ability to send living beings into space. For Americans, these milestones were more than scientific achievements. They were a wake-up call. In response, the United States accelerated its own space program, establishing NASA in 1958. However, the early days were riddled with failures. Rockets exploded on the launch pad, and Soviet successes continued to dominate the headlines. In 1961, the USSR achieved another historic milestone when Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit Earth aboard Vostok 1. This victory cemented the Soviet Union's position as the leader in space exploration, at least for the moment. Amid this context, President John F. Kennedy delivered his famous speech to Congress, declaring that the United States would land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. This bold vision wasn't just about exploration, it was a statement of American determination and ingenuity. The Apollo program, a monumental effort involving tens of thousands of engineers, scientists, and astronauts, was born. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, under the guidance of Chief Engineer Sergei Korolev, launched its own secretive moon program. Both nations poured immense resources into developing the rockets, spacecraft, and necessary infrastructure to achieve their lunar ambitions. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Success in the space race wasn't just a matter of national pride. It was seen as proof of the superiority of one political and economic system over the other. For the United States, landing on the moon would showcase the power of democracy and capitalism. For the Soviet Union, it was an opportunity to demonstrate the strength and innovation of communism. As the 1960s progressed, both nations achieved milestones that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in space. NASA's Gemini program refined the techniques needed for a lunar mission, such as spacewalks and orbital docking. The Soviets, however, focused their efforts on the Luna program, sending robotic spacecraft to photograph the moon's surface and collect soil samples. However, behind the scenes, the challenges were immense. NASA's Saturn V rocket, the largest and most powerful ever built, was still under development. The Soviets faced even greater hurdles as they struggled to design a rocket capable of rivaling the Saturn V. The stage was set for an epic confrontation, with both sides racing against time to claim the ultimate prize, the first human footsteps on the lunar surface. To reach the moon, the Soviet Union needed a rocket that could rival the United States Saturn V. The result was the N-1 rocket, an ambitious and revolutionary design that aimed to place cosmonauts on the lunar surface. Unlike the Saturn V, which relied on fewer but more powerful engines, the N-1's design featured a staggering 30 engines in its first stage. This decision was born out of necessity rather than preference. The Soviet Union lacked the advanced high-thrust engines available to NASA, so they opted for a cluster design using smaller engines. The N-1's first stage, known as Block A, was an engineering marvel on paper. Each of its 30 NK-15 engines produced significant thrust, and together they generated over 10 million pounds of force, more than enough to escape Earth's gravity. However, this complexity came at a cost. Synchronizing so many engines was a monumental challenge, especially given the limitations of Soviet-era technology. The engines needed to work perfectly in unison, as even a single failure could lead to catastrophic consequences. Another major obstacle was the lack of comprehensive testing facilities. While NASA rigorously tested each stage of the Saturn V individually, the Soviet engineers had to conduct full-scale tests of the N-1 as a complete unit. This approach left little room for identifying and fixing problems during development. Additionally, political pressure to keep up with the Americans meant that the N-1 program was rushed, often at the expense of thorough quality control. The N-1's payload capacity was impressive. It was designed to carry the Soviet lunar lander, known as LK, and a two-person crew. The mission profile envisioned one cosmonaut descending to the moon's surface while the other remained in lunar orbit. Despite the ambitious goals, the program faced significant resource constraints. Funding was limited compared to NASA's Apollo program, and many of the Soviet Union's best engineers were diverted to completing projects such as military missile development. Compounding these challenges was the death of Sergei Korolev in 1966. As the chief architect of the Soviet space program, Korolev's leadership and vision had been instrumental in its early successes. His passing created a leadership vacuum, and the program struggled to maintain its focus and direction. Meanwhile, NASA was making steady progress. The Apollo missions were achieving critical milestones like the first manned lunar orbit in December 1968. Despite these hurdles, the Soviets pressed on, determined to compete in the race to the moon. The N-1 rocket represented their best hope, but its complexity and the challenges of development would soon prove to be its undoing. The ultimate test of any rocket lies in its ability to perform during launch. For the N-1, this would prove to be its greatest challenge. Between 1969 and 1972, the Soviet Union conducted 4 test flights of the N-1 rocket, each with catastrophic results. The first launch, designated N-1-3L, took place in February 1969. Moments after liftoff, the rocket experienced a severe vibration issue known as pogo oscillation, causing its engines to shut down prematurely. It crashed back onto the launch pad, creating a massive explosion that destroyed much of the surrounding infrastructure. This failure highlighted the challenges of managing 30 engines in unison and the need for robust testing protocols. The second test, N1-5L, occurred in July 1969, just days before NASA's Apollo 11 mission successfully landed humans on the moon. Once again, the N1 failed to perform. A loose bolt in the engine's fuel system caused a fire that spread rapidly, leading to a complete loss of the vehicle. The timing of this failure dealt a significant blow to the Soviet morale, as the world watched American astronauts take their first steps on the lunar surface. Subsequent launches in 1971 and 1972 fared no better. The third test flight, N1-6L, suffered a mid-air explosion due to engine control issues, while the fourth, N1-7L, ended in another catastrophic failure caused by a wiring defect. Each failure underscored the technological challenges of the N1's complex design and the limitations of the Soviet testing infrastructure. These repeated setbacks were not just technical failures, but symbolic defeats. As the Apollo program achieved one milestone after another, the N-1's shortcoming heightened the widening gap between the two superpowers in space exploration. For the Soviet Union, the dream of landing cosmonauts on the moon was slipping away. Despite these failures, Soviet engineers continued to refine the N-1's design. Plans for a fifth test flight included upgrade to the rocket's engines and control systems. However, by the mid-1970s, political and economic pressures led to the cancellation of the Soviet lunar program. The N-1 was retired without ever achieving a successful flight, marking the end of the Soviet Union's ambition for a manned moon landing. Although the N-1 rocket never succeeded in its missions, its story remains a testament to the Soviet Union's determination to push the boundaries of human ingenuity, even in the face of insurmountable odds. The failure of the N-1 did not signify the end of Soviet space exploration, but rather marked a pivot in their focus. After the cancellation of the manned lunar program, the Soviet Union shifted its attention to space stations and robotic lunar missions. The lunar program continued to achieve significant milestones, such as the first robotic sample return missions and the first rovers to explore the lunar surface. These accomplishments proved that the Soviet Union remained a formidable force in space science, even as the United States dominated human exploration. The legacy of the N-1 rocket lives on in unexpected ways. Its complex design and clustered engine concept influenced future projects, including modern rockets like SpaceX's Falcon Heavy and Starship. Elon Musk has often cited the lessons of the N-1 in discussions about his company's engineering philosophy, noting that the Soviet engineers were pioneers in pushing the limits of rocket technology. More broadly, the N-1 represents a crucial chapter in the history of the space race. It serves as a reminder of the challenges and risks inherent to exploring the unknown. The N-1's failures forced the Soviet Union to reevaluate its approach to space exploration, leading to innovations that paved the way for their successes in low Earth orbit and robotic space missions. For historians and space enthusiasts alike, the story of the N-1 rocket is a tale of ambition, rivalry, and the relentless pursuit of discovery. It highlights the human spirit's capacity to dream big, even when those dreams are fraught with setbacks. Though the Soviet Union never reached the moon, The contributions of its engineers, scientists, and cosmonauts remain an enduring part of our collective journey to the cosmos. Today, as we look towards new horizons, whether it's returning to the moon or sending humans to Mars or exploring other planets, the lessons of the space race remind us of what is possible when nations and individuals dare to aim for the stars. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be posting more history, space, and other interesting topics, so let me know in the comments below if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover. See you next time.